What is up, folks, and welcome to the BJT show where I talk about sports, media, entertainment, and such things. I'm your host, Byron, and in this episode, this will actually be the first solo episode of the BJT show. So, this episode will just have your host, me, or the host, me. So, but yeah, I want to talk about, working in sports and being in sports media in this episode. So, I'm going to talk about how I got my start working in sports media and, sort of what it's like working in sports, giving a breakdown of that. So I started working in sports. Well, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack a little bit. So I first started playing football when I was 5 or 6 years old, and in my rec league, the teams mimic college football teams. So the first team I played for in recreational football was the Auburn Tigers, not the actual Auburn Tigers in college football, but it was a team that mimicked the Auburn Tigers. And then my second year playing rec football, I played for a team called the Florida Gators. Not actually the Florida Gators, you know, the college football team, Florida Gators. It's just that my recreational team mimicked the actual college team, Florida Gators, right? And that's how I became a fan of the Florida Gators and the Auburn Tigers. More so the Florida Gators, but I think Auburn is cool too. So playing football, all that good stuff. And then I played football in middle school. Cool. I played like defensive end, linebacker, a little bit of safety. And then when I was in eighth grade, I played some receiver and safety. And then when I got to ninth grade, played defensive back and pretty much played defensive back all throughout high school. Should have played receiver, but you know, I think I could have did both, but I probably should have played receiver, but I wasn't as confident at the time in being a receiver, but it's fine. And so I had some offers to play college football. It was from, the offers were from really small schools. So I went to this school called Brevard College for a little bit, and I was there for a very short amount of time. Throughout the training camp process, I was actually making up a class from high school that I hadn't finished yet that I was working on over that summer. And then my eligibility for my freshman season of college football got revoked, so I had to go home. But they did tell me like, hey, once you get all that figured out, you can't come back. And so I got all the class stuff figured out, finished all that, but I was like, you know what? I want to do some other things that I feel like I'm good at besides football. So I started writing. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this sports writing thing out. And I saw this story about one of my favorite football players, Tyrann Mathieu, in the Players Tribune. And I was like, okay, that's cool, whatever, whatever. And I was like, I want a story like that in the Players Tribune, but I'm not famous. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just write it myself. So I wrote a story called Bounce Back, and it talks about sports, mental health, mental health in sports and perseverance and just like a whole bunch of stuff, right? And the story is done really well. It has over 3,000 views on the platform Medium, but it has over 350,000 impressions on Twitter. So I thought that was pretty cool. But if you want to know more about all that, sort of my story to how I got to, where I am with sports media, you can, read those stories on my blog. But anyway, so moving on. So try the college football thing out, whatever. I started sports writing, started coaching football for a little while too. But, moving on. And I was just like, okay, let me see, about this whole sports media thing and sports writing. So I got a lot of good feedback on my stories with sports writing. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to keep writing, and keep writing. And I feel like I'm a pretty good writer. So people were giving a lot of positive feedback about my blogs and articles and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, cool. I think I can write pretty well. So I just kept at it. Anyway, though, moving on. So I transferred to Kennesaw State University from Point University in 2020. And so I actually had knee surgery that summer in 2020. So I wasn't on campus at Kennesaw State for the fall semester. So I was like, okay, well, I'm picking classes. What I originally went in college to major in was exercise science. But I changed about halfway through. I changed my major halfway through. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to take chemistry online, especially with me just having knee surgery. I want to be on campus in the classroom, especially for a class like chemistry. But I was just like, I'll just change my majors and, probably finish later. So I changed to sport management. I was in the sport management major, taking all my classes, doing all that good stuff. And my thing with college, I really tried to be a good leader and a good teammate in the classroom. And so, as far as being a good leader, being really encouraging and motivating and, inspiring other people in the classroom or at my university. And so, being a good teammate, like, hey, if we have a test coming up, if you need help studying or whatever, like, I got you, or other people in the class, they got you, and they can help. And so basically stuff like that and just, competing in the classroom. Not necessarily against everyone else, but myself because I want to make really good grades and I did that. So I think I made the president's list 3 times, the dean's list 1 time. So but yeah, anyway though. So back to sports media. I end up graduating from Kennesaw State University in May of 2023. And so I'm like, okay, so it's time to start applying for jobs and all that stuff. But the thing is, I think I should have got more experience in sort of sports media while I was in college. But I was so busy and, I was kind of late to the party. I'm like, okay, I did have an internship in college, but it wasn't for sports media per se. It was more so like administrative, right? So I was like, all right, I gotta get more experience with sports media. So I started sports writing for different publications. So I started doing that, and then, as I progressed in my sports media career, I'm like, okay, sports writing for more companies or writing for more publications, and then getting more experience, getting more on-air experience with interviews and game breakdowns, analysis, and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, I'm more of a sports analyst rather than a reporter per se, because I really try to break down the game and, all the intricacies of the game, like this wide receiver did this or this route worked because of this type of thing. Anyway, just kept getting more experience and getting more experience and just started applying for more jobs. But it was kind of difficult because, you know, the sports industry is very competitive, you know. And after I graduated, I was just grinding and grinding, trying to get a job in sports media. And so I want to put a pause on that actually, because there is an article that I wrote called The Reality of Working in Sports. I'm not going to read the whole article, but if you want to check it out, check it out. I think it's really good. And so this is about college students getting a job in their degree field after they graduate. And so in the article, it says, according to a January 2023 survey done by ngpf.org titled, quote, question of the day, what percentage of college graduates work in their field of study? That survey, well, that story, survey surveyed 1,000 college students, and it was stated that, quote, in addition to dealing with financial insecurity, only 46% of college grads surveyed say they currently work in their field of study. 29% report working in a different field, while 16% of those under age 54 and therefore not likely retired say they are currently unemployed. I get that a lot of college students struggle getting a job in their field after graduating, at least a full-time job. That brings me back to the whole getting experience. So I was basically working as a freelancer, to get more experience in sports media as far as sports writing, on-air work, analysis, and all that kind of stuff. While I'm building up my resume in my sports media career, I was working regular jobs. I was working retail jobs, taking the trash out, folding clothes. I worked cleaning up after animals. So that wasn't always fun, cleaning up after animals, but it was cool though. It wasn't that bad. And so, doing that and working in retail, taking trash out, like I was saying, and, when I would go to work at those different places, I would tell myself, like, okay, it'll be a great story once everything works out, in my career. When I get a full-time job in sports media and be more successful in sports media. And so I'm just like, okay, well, not every day, but a lot of the days I went to work, I was just like, all right, just keep on grinding, keep on grinding, keep on grinding. And like I was saying before, I would tell myself it'll be a great story once everything works out. So while I'm taking the trash out, folding clothes, or cleaning up after dogs, or hanging clothes, or whatever, I just kept telling myself it'll be a great story once everything works out. And I feel like it's already a great story, with how far I've progressed in my career, and, how much I've overcome and just, getting to the point where I am now. And so I was just like, thinking it'll be an even greater story because I already think it's a great story. Anyway, though, one thing in particular stuck out to me because I remember working my one of my retail jobs that I had, and I was talking to one of my coworkers, and we were talking about college and what our majors are and what we want to do in our career and all that stuff. And I was telling them, well, they were like, "So, what do you do?" And I was like, "Well, I graduated with a degree in sport management. I do a lot of sports media work, writing, yada yada yada." Just sort of breaking it down. And then they were like, "Oh, okay, that's really cool, whatever, whatever." And then they were like, "So what are you doing here?" And I was just like, "Dang." I wasn't like embarrassed, but I was kind of like, "Dang, what am I doing here?" But at the same time, it's like, your journey is your journey. So my journey is my journey. So I'm like, it's all a part of the journey. And I told them, I was just like, well, I'm just grinding for a full-time job in sports. So, but I guess I'll be doing this in the meantime, while I'm getting more experience, in sports media and all that. And they were like, okay, cool. But that really stuck out to me. And I was just like, dang, what am I doing here? Why are things, the way they are? Why haven't I gotten a full-time job in sports yet? Why am I working, retail, folding clothes, hanging clothes, and taking trash out and stuff like that? But there's nothing wrong with that either. It was just like, I felt kind of bad because I didn't have a full-time job in sports yet, especially with me being older now. At the time that this happened, I was 24 years old. I'm 25 now. And, I was just like, dang, I'm getting older. I gotta hurry up and get a job, a full-time job, and all this stuff. But people I've talked to have told me like, don't worry about that. Run your race. Like I was saying before, my journey is my journey. Your journey is your journey. So just keep on grinding and don't really worry about it. Anyway, though, back to my sports media career. Sorry for getting off on that tangent. So anyway, building up experience, building up my resume, doing all that good stuff. So writing for a bunch of different publications and all that, being on it, interviews, all that good stuff, right? All that's been going really well. I have experience as a analyst and broadcaster, so breaking the game down, all that good stuff. And then sports writing, I've interviewed NFL players, NFL coaches, I've interviewed college football players, college athletes in general, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, things have been going pretty well. I actually wanted to get into some numbers, actually. I wanted to get into some numbers about my sports writing and different publications that I've written for. As far as reads and views go on stories that I wrote, as of December 2024. So for Medium, where I have my blog where I write about sports and all that stuff, I have over 24,000 views, story views collectively on that platform. And then I also write for Sportskeeda, and I have about 29,500 views or so. Hopefully soon it'll be 30,000 or reads. They call them reads on Sportskeeda. So about 29,000 plus reads on Sportskeeda. And then TWSN, which is the Right Way Sports Network, I have about 23,000 plus views. And then for Fansided, I have about 3,500 plus views. But I only published one story on Fansided, but that story has over 3,500 views on it, so that's pretty good. But and then on Twitter, my Twitter impressions for articles that I wrote and posted on Twitter, the impressions for those collectively is 700,000 plus impressions. It could be more than that, but roughly, I was crunching some numbers, and that's kind of where it's at. I think I've done pretty well. And back in August of this year, I was on TV for the first time. It was for Score Atlanta or Peachtree Sports Network. So shout out to Score Atlanta and everybody who helped with that event. You know, it was the Corky Kell and Dave Hunter Classic for our high school football. And I was on TV, so I got to do some interviews after some of the games. So that was fun. One of my friends was actually watching it or watching the games, and they saw me on TV, and they were like, "Oh, that's Byron," you know, and all that. And they showed me, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool." But yeah, and then after that, started doing more sports broadcasting, but it was mainly remote. It's been tough, like getting a full-time job in sports, but I'm grinding and grinding and grinding. And I've reached out to so many people. I remember times where I've been on the computer for hours and hours and hours just reaching out to people in sports media and like, okay, I'm so and so, this is my resume. I would love to talk to you about your career and any advice, whatever. And just talking to so many people. And a lot of them tell me the same thing, like, yeah, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You're getting the experience. Your resume looks good. You're grinding, working hard, reaching out, and all that stuff, and getting advice and everything. And they're like, you're doing good. It's really just a matter of circumstance. And as far as being motivated and disciplined and working on my craft, with applying to so many jobs, you get a lot of rejections too. And that's just how it is. And so I remember, keeping all the rejection emails that I got from jobs that I, applied for. And even with colleges, there were colleges that I wanted to go to that I didn't get into and or colleges that I applied to and got rejected, and I kept those rejection letters and emails. Same thing, for the jobs that I applied to that I was rejected, right? And so I kept those rejection emails and used them as motivation. Basically, I've just been trying to get better and better, just working on my craft and working on my craft. As far as sports media goes, getting my demo reel squared away and getting that in order, resume, applying for jobs, reaching out, all that good stuff. That's kind of where it's been. And as far as my sports background goes, and again, you can read up on my blogs to find out more or learn more about my sports background. But I was a two-time state champion football player in high school. I was a part of two state championship winning teams. I think it should have been four. We went to state three times, won two, lost one, and we lost in the semifinals my freshman year. But I feel like if we would have went to the state championship, we probably would have won that year. But whatever, it's all right, it's okay. And when I was coaching football, I got a championship. I was part of a championship, winning staff, and got my first championship as a coach at 20 years old while being a college student. I thought that was pretty cool. Then, I have a family of NFL players, highlighted by my cousin, who's a former 49ers running back and return man, Dexter Carter. So he won a Super Bowl with the 49ers back in, I think, 1995 or 96 when they played against the Chargers in the Super Bowl. I know a good amount of players in the league, and yeah, that's that. So I've gotten advice from them on working in sports and all that good stuff. That's kind of my journey, sort of the Spark Notes version. But if you want to learn more, you know, read up, read up on it, or check out my social medias. But yeah, sometime this year, I want to say in August, I created the BJT Show, which is my sports show slash podcast and all that. And so that's been doing pretty well. I've gotten some really good interviews and just different content for the YouTube channel, like vlogs, interviews, podcasts, and I'm going to have a debate segment for my podcast. And I've been getting sponsors for my podcast slash YouTube show. That's been cool. I really appreciate that. I just got to keep working and just keep at it. To the people out there who are trying to get a job, especially in this job market, it doesn't have to be just sports media or sports in general. I know it's tough. I know. Trust me. I know. Right. But keep working, keep on grinding. Hopefully something will turn out. Just got to keep working and got to keep at it. Even with sports media, there was a time where I felt like I just wanted to retire from sports media and be like, you know what? I've done a lot of good work in sports media. People have told me I really inspired them and helped them with my story and writing and sports media, all this stuff. And I was like, maybe I've done enough. And so I'll just retire from that and go back to school to be a physical therapist like I originally wanted to. And I still can do that. But I was just like, maybe that's my way of retiring from sports media. And I was just like, you know what? I just got to keep working. Just got to keep working and y'all do too, whether it's sports media or, I don't know, biomechanics, biology or whatever, whatever. Just got to keep working. I know this job market is very hard. It's tough, but just got to keep at it. But as far as people who work in sports, basically a small rundown of working in sports. It can be tough. It's a competitive industry. It can be tough to get a job. The hours are kind of crazy. Sometimes it's not really your average 9 to 5. You might be working some hours around the game, whatever. It really just depends on what area of sports you work in. So it could be you could work in the media side, you could work in the logistics side, you can work in the operational side, so for marketing, whatever. But things are just kind of different. Sports writing, all that. So it's kind of different depending on what area that you work in. But either way, it can be tough, but it can also be rewarding too. So to anybody out there who wants to work in sports, it is a tough industry to break into, but it's possible. You just got to keep working and find your niche, find something that you're good at, and keep at it, keep working, applying for jobs, and you just got to keep getting better and better. With the whole job rejection thing, like I was saying before, it's tough. I remember times like wanting to cry and just being really sad that I didn't get certain jobs, or I felt like I did really well in an interview and didn't get the job. But that happens in general with jobs, not just in sports. But just got to keep working though, basically. That's all I got to say about that. But as far as the BJT show goes, podcast has been doing really well. Thank y'all for that. I appreciate the support. I only have like 53 subscribers at the time of this podcast episode filming. Hopefully, I'll get more. And I have about 1,200 views on my videos altogether. Shout out to everybody who's been keeping up with the BJT show. I just got to keep getting better, working on my craft, and also have some more merchandise dropping soon. So check out that, and that'll be in the description box. But it's some more BJT inspired merchandise, but it'll be some jogger pants, windbreakers, hats, tote bags, duffel bags, all that kind of stuff. And some of the proceeds go to athletics, like teams in need or athletes in need, or just athletics in general, food banks and mental health organizations, stuff like that. I know for the last campaign that I did with BJT Inspire, donating to food banks and some specific food banks and doing well with that. That was really fun. Giving back and helping people and inspiring people really means a lot to me. I want to continue to do that and give back, basically, is what I'm saying. But check out that merchandise. Again, to anybody out there that's trying to get a job in sports or in general, just keep on grinding, keep working, and hopefully something turns out. Just got to keep getting better. But hope y'all enjoyed this episode, first solo episode. So yay! But be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on my social medias. All that'll be in the description box. Check out the merchandise, all that good stuff. Also got some partnerships for the podcast/show. So that's good. So shout out to y'all. I haven't announced them yet. Well, I've announced some of them, just not on the YouTube channel yet at the time of this podcast episode filming, but whatever. Y'all get the point. Check all that out. Check out the show and the podcast and the social medias. And yeah. Anyway, hope you have a good one and peace out.